Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Pacific Horseplayers right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I am your host, Noah Meagher, joined by my wonderful co-host who gets to be back with me again this week, Mr. Ryan Anderson. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you guys are able to enjoy this show. We're going to be covering Santa Anita early pick 5 in about 29 minutes or so. Hopefully we'll be joined by Mr. Michael McCarthy himself, so make sure you stay tuned for that and a great early card that we're going to be covering. Of course, before we do that, we got to go through this stuff. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Power Picks Tip Key is still going on, so make sure you go check that out. $2.10 ROI, 2 full tracks, ABC grids, write-ups for each card. So make sure you go check that out. Then, of course, you can go purchase that and check out more about our podcast at our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. Ryan, it's good to have you back, my friend, with a less loud mic than it was last time I saw you.
A less loud mic and same amount of betting, but less boozing. We're going water today. We're going water this evening. Nice, responsible choice. But yeah, no, good to be back with you. I liked your show last week as we all, enjoyed crossover week a good bit.
Yeah, it was definitely a joy to have some new guys, some fresh faces on the show making their debut, Pete and Pat. But good to have you back, my friend. I got my soda, or juice, as you'd like to say, because I'm not as of age yet, because you like to hold that over me with a vengeance. So I had to mention that. I'll also mention some people that we got in the chat. Let me bring that up. We got Jackson. He was the first one, and he's very fired up. Katie's ready to check it out too. Steven Vanderbrook's here. Evening all. Smash the like button, of course. Smash that like button, notification bell, subscribe button, all that good stuff. Corey Shore, this is a name that I haven't heard, so thanks for joining us, Corey. He's flying to LA tomorrow to play in the contest. I know there's a big opening day contest. I know our good friend Matt Miller will be playing that. Speaking of Matt Miller, here he is. Hi, all. Looking forward to a fun show. Thomas Espinosa's here. Merry Christmas, Katie, and all here. Gary Slayton is another name I haven't heard. Thanks for joining the show. Merry Christmas. I will need winners to offset my white Christmas buying. That's a good point. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and actually, you know what, Ryan, I'll throw it to you because you just had a show a little while ago with a special guest to cover the late sequence on Thursday's card.
We did. Jackson and I over on Get Bucked were joined by none other than Andy Serling. So we went over the late pick 5 for opening day at Santa Anita. It was awesome. Had some, minor technical issues at the beginning, which turns out to be really ironic because, Noah, your audio definitely worked perfectly on the pre-show. So, going through the sequence was great. Andy was a fantastic guest, and we had some great opinions, good banter back and forth. So I look forward to hopefully having him on again in the future.
Yeah, no, he's a terrific get for you guys. And I know the Picks and Ponies guys will be coming on right after us, so make sure you go check that out. They'll also be talking about the late pick 5 sequence. So if you want to hear their opinions, I know I don't need to. So I'm just kidding. But make sure you go check that out. But anyway, like I said, we're going to be covering the early pick 5 for you guys. So let me get the picks up on the screen for race 1. Race 1 to start out the day is actually at 11 o'clock, Ryan. So if we're gonna make it out to Arcadia, we gotta get our butts up there early. 11 o'clock Pacific. It's allowance optional claiming 50,000 down the hill, 6.5 furlongs on the turf. We got a nice big field of 12 here. Morning line favorite goes to the 8 Mas Rapido for Kimura and Georgie Papapadromo. And then second choice is the 9 Count of Amazonia, the 7-year-old for JJ and Hess. I'll go ahead and put the picks up on the screen here. For some reason, they are not coming up. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm going 3, 8, 9, and Ryan's going 9, 12, 1. Ryan, you are going with the 7-year-old Count of Amazonia, who's second off of a long layoff.
I am, and I know Bob Hatz maybe doesn't have the strongest numbers firing second off the bench this type of spot. He's technically 0 for 24. However, I like the 5 furlong placement last time out. I think that's going to just encourage this horse to have a little bit of speed. Obviously, he didn't show a ton, but being back there and then going 6.5 down the hill where this horse has 2 wins in 2 seconds, I like that. So he clearly has an affinity for the down the hill. where he posted a 91 and a 94 Beyer, 3 and 4 back. So again, this is clearly kind of his wheelhouse. And coming back off a very long layoff, was off since July of last year, ran November 29th, so like close to closing weekend at Del Mar this fall, and now comes in here. Clearly bred for the grass, clearly loves the grass. So I want this one coming down the hill.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. Obviously, the 5 furlong race last time just seemed like to get one into him. 5 furlongs is not his best. He likes to go around that long one turn down the hill at Santa Anita. He's done that several times, which is one of the reasons why I have him in third. He's got the downhill experience and just a classy individual. I know he's 7 years old, but you feel like he's got to come with his best foot forward. If he's already 7, and Hess is going to kind of take the time and the intent to bring him back. So I think one you got to use for those reasons. I've got him in third. I would have had him higher, but you make a good point about how Hess is not great off of long layoffs, even second time off of long layoffs. I think I don't have the stat up in the top right, which I normally do sometimes, but I want to say he was maybe 1 for 35, second off a long layoff at Santa Anita or something like that. So maybe a little negative or something you could kind of take against him to maybe move him down the ladder a little bit. We'll go to your horse that you have in second, which is the 12 Western Avenue for Tiago Pereira and Steve Knapp, which was a combo who was hitting pretty well recently at Los Al.
Yeah, and we're not that far removed from Los Alamitos Racing, so I think they had this spot kind of in mind as they didn't run this one on the dirt over at Los Al. They just kind of took some time off from that last effort, again, November 29th at Del Mar. So looking at less than a month, so comes back in here, didn't really miss anything, on the Los Al meet. Had a nice run last time. I think 5 furlongs, probably a little too short. Had a good run and a good win, made an open maiden special weight company going 6.5 on the flat at Santa Anita, 2 back. So I like him coming in here. This is just kind of the hot hand angle. Pretty wide open race. Obviously a late season 4-year-old, but I have high hopes, and I think this one is going to be forwardly placed. And the outside draw doesn't really dissuade me by any means, because as you can see from that little graphic, we're on time form now, but that's okay. When you come down the hill, you make this sort of dog leg right, and then you kind of swoop back left. So post position really doesn't matter too much, especially if you can be forward. He'll have the ability to save some space, save some ground, and make a run.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit of advantage just because normally you take a left-hand turn, you're saving ground, but you take the right-hand turn and save a little ground in some kind of sense that way. Any worry here with the fast pace, and maybe he needs to be at least close in a race like this?
Maybe a little bit, but the time for him coming down the hill, the fast pace can kind of just pop up there sometimes, and maybe it doesn't always, turn out that way. The down the hill, obviously, in the name, they're running down a hill. So you get wickedly fast times. They'll go 43 when on a flat. That's maybe like a 44 and change in some instances. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but either way, I'm not too dissuaded by it. I think he has the ability to be up close, and I mean, maybe he has the finishing power. It doesn't take too much out of those speed horses to work with gravity coming down. So hopefully, as long as he crosses over the dirt fine, it should be all right.
Yeah, I don't really have any problem with him. I think this is a wide open race. There's many different ways he can go. Well, many different ways he can go, as do most of the down the hill races at Santa Anita tend out to be. I've got the 3 Oscar Joy in front, and I don't love this pick, but I just whenever I'm looking at these down the hill races, I always try to get somebody that's cutting back in distance. I think Oscar Joy is kind of a sprinter at heart. You can see 3 back, he went down the hill and ran a nice second to Central Dispatch, and then beat Irish Royalty. It looks like that race was pretty live. And then 2 back went 5 furlongs, which I think is a little too short for him. I think he prefers maybe 6 or 6.5. And then I have to admit the mile race, he didn't really have much of an excuse, but I feel like, that's a little too long for him. Peter Miller cuts him back. He's good. I love the route sprint angle. Peter Miller knows what he's doing. He's got the blinkers on. So, he should be about mid pack. Hopefully not too close to that place, to that hot pace, but still able to close. And then Pratt, always one you have to keep in mind. And hopefully he's able to get the job done here that can start a big day for him on Thursday. So I've got him in the mix.
I'd love to hear Jackson's angle here, because we know how he loves the paired up Beyer tops. What do you do with tripled up Beyer tops? What do you do with that angle, Jackson? But
yeah, we need to hear from him.
I like the mile cut back to down the hill. That's an angle that works pretty well. Blinkers on will keep him sharp, and he should give a really good run. Pratt on board doesn't hurt.
Yeah, and you've got the 1 and 3rd news at 10 for Rosario and Sadler. This was one where he's run fine his last couple of times. He seems to be one that's always bet, which is why I didn't love him. But certainly could be one, and it looks like he could sit a pretty good trip with his hot pace.
Yeah, he always gets bet, but never really seems to be the favorite. Hasn't been the favorite in any of his races stateside. Has only been the favorite once in his career, but definitely always takes money. Sadler and the Haranis Racing Connections had high hopes for this one. Probably doesn't, have the best running style, but I think the 1, the 9, and the 12 all have different ones that kind of complement each other. So I have the 1 is going to be kind of mid pack. My 9 is kind of the closer, and then 12 obviously on the lead. So I like news at 10. The post draw definitely same as the 12. It doesn't help or hurt going down the hill. Will have the same ability to save ground. I'm hoping Rosario, obviously, in a turf sprint, you love him finishing. So that's kind of what attracted me to this horse. 3-bat comes out of the race that you just spoke about, lost to Central Dispatch, Oscar Joy, and Irish Royalty. However, came back to run a decent second next time out with an improved buyer speed figure behind Irish Corn, who, if I remember correctly, was pretty well meant in that spot and won pretty handily. So I think coming down the hill is what this horse is going to appreciate, and I like Rosario on board.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the race 2 back, if he's able to run back to that with the 84 buyer and the 109 time for him, he finished in front of Oscar Joy, and it was a length and a quarter, so beat him pretty handily that day. So if he runs back to that, I think he's got a big shot. And then we can't move on to the next race without talking about the 8, who's actually the morning line favorite, who you don't have anywhere, Ryan. I'd like to hear why. It's 5-2 on the line, maybe a little short in terms of a win bet. I certainly would never put a win bet on this horse, but I think maybe horizontally you probably have to use him.
I guess. I don't think I'm going to use him. I just don't. I think he burns money more than he makes you money. Obviously, he's a proven horse overall, but no wins down the hill. He's had a fair amount of tries. Again, he could win. He's just not the horse that I'm going to pick on top. Kimura on board, no. Nothing bad about that. Georgie obviously fires all the time at Santa Anita. He just had a razor hot meet when they were there after the summer at Del Mar. But I don't know. I feel like we've kind of seen all this horse has to offer this season as a late season 4-year-old in his 4th start just since the summer. So I'm okay on this one, although, going to take some money, but I'm going to try and beat him.
Yeah, we got the boss in the chat. He says, "What's up, guys?" He's also playing in the Thursday contest. He must be able to do that online, not just
I guess so.
Express bets. Yeah. He said he's got 2 entries. He's asking if he should make a play early. So he might have to tune in later for some opinions. I certainly got one for him. And here's Jackson's response to our 80-80-80 question. He says he's going to run another 80. So I guess we'll have to see that. I hear what you're saying about Mas Rapido. Again, it's the cutback angle for me. If you just look at his last 3 races as a whole, I mean, 88, 88, 89, that's, at the top of the list in terms of buyer figures in a race like this. And even time form lines up with the 107, 108. The 112 last time is one of the best that's on the paper for anybody. So like I said, I think if you're playing the early pick 5 or if you're playing some kind of early sequence, probably have to have him on the ticket. He likes Santa Anita, so nothing really wrong with him. But I wouldn't fault anybody to do what you're doing and trying to beat him to start the day. So anybody else that we want to mention, just because this race is so wide open before we get to the Baffert Invitational?
Yep, definitely a spready race, but nobody else I really want to speak about. But to Howard's comment there, you have a good all in tournament play here in the next race, because I think it's pretty much a two horse race.
All right, we'll go ahead and get to it. I'm going 3, 8, 9, and Ryan's going 9, 12, 1. Let me get race 2 up on the screen for us. There we go. Race 2 is a maiden special weight, 6 furlongs on the dirt, 4 2-year-old boys. We got 2 should be highly regarded names in this race, both the inside and the outside. The morning line favoritism goes to the 1 Matticat Road for Juan Hernandez and Baffert, and then another Baffert entry on the outside, San Saba, another 2-year-old for Velasquez and Baffert himself. Let's see what Ryan and I are going in this race. Very similar. I'm going 1-7-3, and Ryan's going 7-1-3. Ryan San Saba is a first-time starter for the Baffert barn. Justify colt who just looks to be like a complete monster.
Does. And everybody's been very high on this horse from everybody I've spoken to, everybody that's watched the workouts. However, speaking with somebody earlier today, his last work, and watched it for myself, and I know I sent it to you and Jackson, just looked a little weird on the gallop out, like a little tired, maybe just, I don't know, wasn't quite feeling it. Some horses, especially first-time starters, they're a little quirky. However, one of his main exercise riders is obviously, well, Baffert is very high on this horse. They say he reminds him a lot of Justify, his dad. Another horse that comes to mind that this one's kind of been talked to prior to debut is Heartland, who was the runner for Baffert out of Justify. Reminded everybody just like his dad. Only ran one race and is now off at stud somewhere in Kentucky. But I'm hoping San Saba has a longer career. This horse looks like an absolute freak of nature. And no disrespect to the one, because Madaket Road is a horse that I was personally very high on his debut in the Bob Hope, and he ran a very nice second behind a horse Bullard that we're going to talk about with Mr. McCarthy later. So, I'm going to take the number 7. I'm high on this horse. I got to stick with my guns on this one. And if I get a better price of 2 highly touted Baffert horses, I'll take it.
Yeah, it's funny because even though I'm 1-7, I thought they were very interchangeable. And I think in a way, this race for me is maybe the reason why I don't play the early pick 5, because from a ticket construction standpoint, it doesn't make sense to necessarily use them evenly. But I just don't have really an opinion otherwise. So if I do play the early pick 5, I feel like I just maybe have to choose one, and maybe that's the case. But you're right. I was watching his works on XBTV, and I watched the one on December 9th when he went 48 flat, and I was just like, whoa. I mean, it was very impressive. And then I watched that last one, like you said, it was weird, kind of with the gallop out, like they kind of pulled it by the wire. But I don't want to look too into that, just based off of what I've seen. Yeah, great info that you got that you were sharing with Jackson and I earlier.
One other note on the 7 before we go down to the number 1 is that his last work out of the gate was with the $2.3 million horse Colmus, who's going to run and debut on Friday. Obviously a highly touted horse who is also a freak of nature. Sin Saba broke faster than Colmus. Colmus isn't particularly quick out of the gate, but Colmus was able to catch up pretty quick, and it's one of those tough works to judge. I did more work, I put more weight into the gallop out for San Saba. Just looking at it was kind of weird. It almost looked like he was pulled up for half a second and just kind of awkward with it. But again, brand new horse, they can be quirky. So I'm excited to see San Saba debut, and I know a lot of people are too.
Well, considering the gallop out is the name of your show, I would hope that you would, take more consideration into that. Madaket Road is the other horse. I know we've got a top 3, but it really looks like it's between one of these two. And if you're kind of confused about what super pig means up in the top right, that's what Ryan likes to call his horses that he thinks are monsters. So Madaket Road. Remind me again who he was working with on the 19th.
On Madaket, Madaket Road on the 19th was working with your Kentucky Oaks winner, Cipriani, for Bob Baffert. So Baffert only works Cipriani with his top end colts. Yeah, you can buck off there, Noah.
I love that.
Thank you, Matt. Cipriani only works with the top end colts in the Baffert barn because he discourages all the fillies, or she discourages all the fillies and mares that she's worked with in the past. So love Cipriani, who obviously romped first time out. Madaket Road outworked Cipriani to back, and I was told that was kind of the plan, was to never have Cipriani go by. Either way, though, just looking at the body language of the exercise rider, Madaket Road was basically under a hammerlock. Cipriani looked a little green, a little weird. Still a good work for both of them, but Madaket Road looks to be coming in here, not missing a beat after that stakes debut.
Yeah, I wonder if the blinker's on, and just because he worked so fast last time, if they're going to show a little more speed, especially from the inside. Because I think even though I don't think the 2 can win the race, Luis Mendez's horses are always fast. Ayuso's a pretty aggressive guy, so I think the 2 is going to be sending out of there. So I wonder if that's going to kind of force JJ's hand in a sense. I did think it was a little interesting that they debuted him at 7 and they're cutting back to 6. Which, maybe they don't think that 2 turns is in the future, but certainly talented, certainly one that you have to consider in this race. Last horse that we will talk about is the horse that we both have in third, 3 Father Ted. First time starter for Pratt and Mark Glad.
Yeah, I mean, practical joke, first time starter. Those are always pretty nice. Nothing too precocious on the dam side. I like the name. That's kind of funny. But Father Ted, not related to Brother Tony in any way, shape, or form, who is another horse that Noah and I like. But just a first time starter for Mark Glad, excuse me. Pratt hops aboard. There's nothing I love about this horse. There's nothing I love about the post 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This is just my logical horse to kind of round out what I think is going to be a pretty chalky trifecta.
Yeah, I agree with you. I needed to find somebody in third, and I don't think Father Ted's nearly as talented as the other two, and I think he might need a start, but somebody's got to finish third in this race. So
exactly.
We'll go ahead and move on. I'm going 1-7-3, and Ryan's going 7-3-1.
Just a note for the Super Pig designation that I give horses. I can't use Super Horse because that's Zenyatta and Zenyatta only from obviously. So yeah. I got to come up with something else.
Yeah, of course. We'll move on to race 3. This is a maiden special weight. This is 1 mile on the turf. This is for 2-year-old fillies. Another big field of 12. Morning line favorite goes all the way down to the inside at 7-2 with the 1 Slick for Rispoli and D'Amato. Second choice is the 7 Preem for JJ and Michael McCarthy at 4-1. Who we will be talking about shortly in about 10 minutes here. I will go ahead and switch the picks. I'm going 1-5-2, and Ryan's going 7-1-2. Ryan, maybe picking the 7 with a little precursor to what Michael McCarthy has to say about some of his horses on Thursday.
Yeah, not at all, honestly. It was just the second time start with the blinkers on. I think is going to really focus this horse up. The debut looked a little green. Clearly wasn't highly thought of. You got JJ Hernandez at almost 60-1, which is pretty much unheard of. However, yeah, I mean, I don't know. As I hope you put up Jackson's comment, because that is something interesting there. But I like Preem coming second time out here. I think McCarthy's obviously not known for his debuters. Has a really strong ROI with the switch to blinkers on, looking at over a $3 return on investment there. Obviously, JJ Hernandez in the saddle decides to stick around after being on a 60-1 debuter. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be Preem on top for me. I think I don't know that this is the strongest maiden special weight field we're going to see over the weekend anywhere. So, or over the holiday break, I guess. So I think Preem has substantial ability to step up. The price concerns me, going from 60-1 all the way down to 4-1. And he's got to be around there, right? Because those connections alone are probably going to just take some money based on that.
Yeah, that was kind of the main reason why I didn't have her in the top 3. I mean, there are others that I prefer prices on, and the 4-1, I don't want any part of that. If I'm comparing the 1 and the 7, and the 1 I'll let you talk about real quickly. If I get 7-2 on the 1 versus 4-1 on the 7, I will put an unhealthy about on the 1 because I think she's probably the horse to beat. I know she ran okay last time in the Jimmy Durante, but these connections, D'Amato, she's going to save ground the whole way, and she looks to be one that could definitely win this race.
Yeah, and real quick to Jackson's comment, trying to explain the difference between the 3 and the 7. They did not face each other. The 3 and the 6 faced each other. The 7 was in a different maiden race. But right. to talk about Slick, Amarita was the horse that went wire to wire. Had that horse anyway. So
had to throw that in there.
Had to throw that in there. Number 1 Slick was obviously ran in a grade 3 as a maiden last time out. So D'Amato, Little Red Feather, thought really highly of this horse. Umberto hops on for the first time, which is interesting for sure. 2 back came out of the race that Preem debuted in, that we were just speaking about there. Obviously was overmatched in the grade 3. However, if you look at those buyer figures, paired up buyer tops, obviously the time form is going to be a little lower on the buyer scale. You see he ran a 65 time form in his first start in Ireland. Paired up buyer tops, looking for a move forward on obviously a substantial class drop. Horse did a little bit of running in the debut, kind of ran in place second time out. Will then was a pretty nice Jonathan Thomas Woodbine shipper. So I like this third time out. Umberto Rispoli is going to save all the ground at Santa Anita. He's going to tip out. He's going to come home. And if this horse has any amount of run, he's going to win.
Yeah, I don't think she's a world beater by any means, but I think that Jimmy Durante field you could definitely say was a lot better than this field here on Thursday. I believe when we had Frank on the show, I think I had this horse on top just because I like the intent. It was Little Red Feather Racing, so they came over even though she didn't run huge in the main special weight. That just kind of wasn't the end goal in reality. So yeah, I thought she ran fine. She did save a lot of ground. She was in tight a little bit going around the far turn. And then when the hole opened up, she didn't like super explode or anything, but ran on nicely, galloped out well. So I think you got to use her if you're playing horizontals. Funny enough, I've got the 5 and second Lee's Baby Girl, who normally when you just look at the 0-for-8 record, this is a horse that I would never touch in a million years. But if you go closer, if you look closer at the mile turf races, I think there's some not excuses, but I think they're a little better than maybe they look. Look at the one over the summer on August 17th. Lost a thought process and was 4 clear of the rest. And then fast forward to October 4th at Santa Anita, set a hot pace and lost to Sea Runner, who's a nice 2-year-old filly who I believe is a half to Johannes.
Yes.
And then in that Resolve race, Resolve came back and ran 3rd in the Jimmy Durante, as you see. And I thought she kind of did all the dirty work in there. And then the Jimmy Durante, I don't know if maybe it was just because she was sitting off. I don't know if she just preferred not to be on the lead, which I think maybe might be her thing. But I think she's really interesting. And I feel like, I don't know if I want to say you'll get more than 5-1, but this is not a great group to where she could easily get the lead and take them for a while. So I would definitely have her in the mix. Anything you got to talk about with her?
I mean, anytime you see Rosario on a horse that's going to be in the lead, as long as that's where he goes with that horse, he is real dangerous if he gets a horse to just kind of relax into his hands. And then obviously nobody, when you have one of the best finishers, in the jockey colony, and he's on the lead turning for home, he's going to be tough to catch. He's going to be tough to run down. So, I would say that makes him a threat. And certainly in a maiden race where there's not a whole lot of proven form and proven runners to go off of, and he should be lone speed in here, that definitely makes him a threat.
Yeah, we've got a lot of love for the 12 in here. Looks like this might be a little bit of a play for our good friend, Mr. Howard Kravitz. He says, check out the replay on the 12. Now gets Flavian from an apprentice rider and the gallop out. I don't actually remember if I saw the gallop out, but not referring to your show, but talking about the gallop out in that race. Anything you wanted to talk about this 12 here? And then we've got our special guest in the background. The 12 was certainly green last time out. Wasn't as green as Yinzer, sorry, but was certainly could benefit from the experience there. I'm not going to talk Howard off of that pick. Definitely gets a jockey upgrade and gets to stretch out around 2 turns for a great trainer. Yeah, no, I think it's a wide open race and certainly one to consider. I guess the question mark would be if Pratt's able to save ground, but it looks like her style from what we've seen from one race is kind of coming from out of it. So hopefully Pratt can kind of tuck in and save some ground in that regard. But in race 3, I'm going 1-5-2 and Ryan's going 7-1-2. And now we will go ahead and transition because we do have our special guest in the background. So get the picks off of the screen and bring on our special guest, trainer in the California circuit, Mr. Michael McCarthy. Michael, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to get you on. When Ryan said that he was able to get you on for us for a little amount of time, I was ecstatic. So we'll go ahead and not waste any of your time. Ryan, I'll let you get it started with some questions that you want to ask about some of his runners on opening day Thursday.
Absolutely. First of all, Michael, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time. You had a great closing weekend with Formidable Man winning the grade 1 on the way out there, and then had some excellent 2-year-olds show their stuff. One came back just last week to win in the Low South Futurity. Speaking about journalism, of course. Oh, can you hear me?
Can't figure it out.
Hello?
Michael, are you there?
Maybe.
He must not be able to hear us. Maybe some technical difficulties going in from Andy.
We're familiar with that.
Yeah. Michael, can you hear us?
You go up. Just go. Just go.
He must not be able to hear us. I guess we'll maybe
quick audio tie-up.
Yeah, a little technical difficulties there. It looks like we've been having it all day, from Andy to me. but we'll go ahead and maybe bring up some comments. It looks like Boss is happy to have Michael in the chat. Matt's happy to see him too. Katie says, welcome, Michael. Maybe we'll try and bring him on one more time. Michael, can you hear us?
I got you now. Sorry about that.
No worries. Ryan, go
No
back
worries.
to what you're doing.
No worries. Was just saying you had a great closing weekend there at Del Mar, and then one of your 2-year-olds you debuted during the fall meet there came back to win the Los Al Futurity. Speaking about journalism, came back to beat some Breeders' Cup juvenile runners in a pretty nice field. How did he come out of that, and where are we looking going forward?
Came out of it very well. The California racing calendar makes things a little bit different. Sometimes we're on an island out here. We kind of hurried him up to make a 6 furlong race with him. Then a mile race showed up 3 weeks later. Timing wasn't great. We decided to go ahead and give it a whirl. And horse had answered that question. Then it was again 3 weeks back to the Los Al Futurity. He had 2 works in between his maiden score and the Los Alamitos Futurity, and we gave him every opportunity not to run Los Alamitos Futurity, and he just kept on getting better and better. His last work before Los Alamitos Futurity was very good. He's come out of it great. So we've got, February time, kind of maybe the Bob Lewis or something like that.
Very cool. Thank you for answering that. And to keep it on the 2-year-old scene, you also have Bullard, who's an excellent looking 2-year-old that's come out to have a nice win and seems to be doing pretty well. I don't know if the plan is to maybe have them run against each other. I wouldn't imagine. So how did he come out of his last race, and how are you looking for going forward?
Done very well since the Bob Hope. Again, same thing. The 3-year-old calendar in California is very good. Yeah, well, I should say it's I guess very good. Might be a little bit of an overstatement now. We got rid of the sham, which I thought was a shame. It was a mile race early in the meet here at Santa Anita, and fell by the wayside here with some of these 11 stakes or 12 stakes that were cut from the racing calendar. So it's unfortunate. Nothing really going a mile or farther until February. He's been nominated to everything, Oaklawn races, Louisiana races. He will work here in the next few days, and we'll kind of come up with a game plan. It could possibly be the San Vicente. It could be something at Oaklawn Park. Just not sure yet.
Awesome. Well, I hope he continues to progress well, because I know those are 2 runners we really look forward to seeing, hopefully on the Derby Trail as we see them progress. Some runners that you have coming up this weekend in the stakes races this week, I guess, on opening day this Thursday. One of them is Lord Bullington coming in. Looks to be a bit of a price on the morning line, but a lot of people like his form coming second off the bench. How is he doing training up to this spot? And was this always the goal?
This was always in the cards for him. His comeback race at Del Mar, he was a little bit farther than we would have liked and put in a mild run through the lane, galloped out well. That was against older competition in a 2 other than back against 3-year-olds, back going a mile. He may be a little bit better going a mile and an eighth, but it's an evenly matched bunch of horses. He's done well over the Santa Anita turf course before. Umberto knows him well. Not a great post position, so we'll have to kind of work out a trip from way outside.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any jockey you like more than Umberto to work out a nice trip on that turf course. Does it time and again, and always seems to have enough left in the lane to finish it up there. Horse in a maiden race, before I get to your 2 runners in the La Brea. Second-time starter Preem, where JJ Hernandez is going to stick aboard. Obviously, didn't take a whole lot of money on debut, but second time out seems to be highly regarded and gets blinkers on for the effort.
Sneaky good race, first time out, adding some blinkers. This filly has moved forward since she's run. I think she's 4 or 5 to 1. I'd say that's probably a pretty fair price on her. She's done everything we've asked of her. We'll leave it up to JJ, but this filly acts like she could make some noise here.
Absolutely. Thanks for answering that. And then, Noah, did you see Jackson's comment?
Yeah, no, I'll go ahead and bring Jackson's comment up. We got a question from the chat from Jackson. He's curious to see if you've made a big effort recently to get more horses prepared first time out, since your stats with first time starters have seemed to improve over the last several years.
I think it goes with the caliber of horses you get. Starting out, you obviously don't get the cream of the crop. So over the last few years, we've tried to cultivate more 2-year-olds, more yearlings, and things like that. Obviously, 2-year-old sales make things a little bit easier for you. You're getting a little bit of a ready-made product, but yearlings come and they're there, and late March, early April, you get the opportunity to kind of do with them as you please. Obviously, working for Todd Pletcher, there was a large emphasis on 2-year-olds and winning early with some of these 2-year-olds. So it's something we really enjoy. I like kind of mixing and matching and seeing what we've got. If they are good enough to win first time out, if they act like they are precocious enough to win first time out, then we will certainly do so. Some of these horses are bought with the intention of winning early, like at Del Mar and things like that. But yes, if they are well meant and they act like they are precocious and have a touch of class about them, a lot of times in these 2-year-old races, especially 2-turn 2-year-old races, it's not who the best horse is; it's who's the best schooled, who's got the most fitness underneath their belt. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but we do enjoy winning first time out if possible.
Yeah, that's a great insight, Michael. Before we move on to your 2 runners in the La Brea, I have to say I love your jacket. Big golf fan myself. So, have you been to the Masters?
Been fortunate enough to be there a few times. Yes.
Oh wow, I am very jealous, and I'm very jealous that you've got looks like a great chance in the La Brea. We'll first start with accuracy, who I'll ask about. Looks like she's finally found her niche, and it looks like she's finally found out how to win. She's been really good in her last 2 starts. What went into the thought process to maybe cut her back to 7 furlongs, and what kind of instructions will you give Umberto? Will you take back, or will you just kind of let her do her thing?
It's pretty simple. It's a grade 1, last grade 1 of the year, straight 3-year-old fillies. Obviously, once we've stretched this filly out, she's been very, very good. Cutting back may be a little bit of a challenge for her, because I think once she goes, a 1.1 miles, we may really see something special. But she's done everything we've asked of her the last couple of starts, drawn down inside. Obviously going to need to go ahead and use her a little bit and put her in the game a little bit early. She's been able to do that in these 2-turn races, but 7/8 sprinting, little bit going to be, I'm not going to say tricky, but obviously Umberto's going to have to go ahead and use her early to go ahead and assume some position.
Yeah, and Ryan, it sounds like when you guys were talking with Andy a little while ago, Sandy Bottom was a horse that you guys were interested in. So why don't you go ahead and ask about her?
Absolutely. I was encouraging for sure to see her placed in a grade 1 off of the comeback race. Was that the same kind of plan and goal for her, or was it similar to just kind of the last grade 1 on the calendar, and she was doing really well coming out of that race where she beat gamely held off Tamara coming down the lane?
She's trained very well since her comeback. She's a filly we've had high hopes for all along. 7/8 and added furlong. I don't think it's going to be much of an issue. She certainly trains like it's not going to be much of an issue. I think the other day at Del Mar, I think if the tables would have been turned, I think if we'd have drawn inside and the filly that we beat would have been drawn outside, I still think we would have gotten the better of her. That doesn't mean that that's what happens here on Thursday afternoon, but I think this filly at 20-1 is a little bit of a head scratcher. I know making a morning line isn't very easy, but I'd say that's fairly generous. And if she can go ahead and get the 7/8, I think we might be lucky.
It's absolutely a generous line to get 20-1 on a horse where fired really well and wins off of the bench, and then came off a longer layoff than Tamara actually, and is coming into this clearly in good shape. My co-host Jackson Muniz on my YouTube channel like this horse as well, and I believe was his top pick in a very tough La Brea race. Last question I have for you on one of your runners is 3 for 3 at Del Mar, obviously capping that off closing weekend with a grade 1 win. Talking about Formidable Man, how did he come out of that race, and what are kind of the goals for his the rest of his 2024 season as we wrap up and then into 2025?
He's come out of this race very well, worked here an easy half mile, 50 and 4/5 over the weekend. He is on schedule for the Pegasus Turf, January 25th. Be nice to go ahead and take a Son of City of Light back there for a race like that. Obviously, having won one of the earlier renditions of the Pegasus Dirt with his father. He's a horse that seems to be improving all the time. He gets a little bit sharper and a little bit smarter with every race. So he is an exciting prospect for us going into 2025.
That's very exciting. I'm excited to see him in the Pegasus, and I think he's got a real shot in there, certainly based off his last performance at Del Mar.
I agree.
Last question I'll ask you, Mike, and then we'll let you go. Not about any of your horses, but about the game itself of horse racing. So as you can't tell, Ryan and I are definitely very heavily invested and are on the younger side, at least. But from your perspective, what is maybe one way that we can get some more younger people involved in the game that we all love?
I think you guys are doing a very good job with this podcast and reaching a lot of young fans and just gamblers and horsemen in general. I think the game has taken a little bit of a funny turn on social media. Sometimes you have a lot of people chiming in that don't know a whole lot about what we do, what goes into training horses, what goes into the caretaking aspect of these horses. So I think sometimes there's some negative connotations. It seems like it's fodder for some of these newspapers now to go ahead and read that, there's been an accident at a racetrack with certain horse or certain trainer. And it's unfortunate, but it's bad news that almost sells anymore. Racing is a wonderful game. It's a family game. It's a way of life for myself and my family, and basically for anybody involved in the game. You guys obviously do this podcast. You put a lot into it. It takes a lot of time. You're reading charts. You're following, races all over the country, personalities all over the country. Gambling is a huge part of our sport. So anything we can do to procure new gamblers and new players and things like that. Obviously, you've got the adaptation of slots or historical racing machines in places like Kentucky and Florida, and you see what it's doing for the game back there. It makes a huge, huge difference. We're at the mercy of the Indians out here and the tribes, so it makes it a little bit harder for these purses to kind of get elevated and get on a par with the rest of the country. I think it's going to be a huge issue going forward if we don't get something taken care of out here in California. Rising costs of commodities, grain, that sort of thing, workman's comp. It doesn't really add up the per diem costs compared to the risk reward of racing training and participating out here. So I'm hoping there's something that could be done, a new bet, historical racing machines, whatever it may take. I don't think the fewer racing days or fewer races are the answer. We already race 3 days a week out here in California. It's not great. The closure of the Northern California circuit has certainly been a real eye-opener, and seeing what these guys are having to go through. There's still a handful of guys up there, certainly very capable and very passionate about what they do. They're sort of a little bit in no man's land. They're 400 miles away, 300 miles away, and having to participate down here in Southern California doesn't make it real easy for them. So I'd like to see something come to fruition here sooner rather than later, especially in the state of California. Obviously, racing in general is thriving and is robust in Kentucky, the birthplace of the game. I shouldn't say the birthplace of the game, but basically the home of the game here now. Obviously, Ocala and what's going on in Florida are huge. I guess I don't want to say incentive, but you've got the 2-year-old sales, yearling sales, all these sales. Sale toppers every year, gross up every year, median average for yearlings, for 2-year-olds, they keep on going up. So the money is out there. I think a governing body would certainly also help us as well.
Yeah, no, you make a lot of great points, Michael, and we are very fortunate to have you in the game and to have you on the podcast. But we'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck to you on Thursday, the rest of the week, and you going forward.
Thank you, guys. Have a happy holiday.
You
Thank
too.
you too, Michael.
Take care.
That was Michael McCarthy, everyone. He had a lot of great things to say, especially about the last question.
Yeah, that last answer was awesome.
Yeah, that was terrific. Any thoughts about some of his runners and any opinions that maybe have been swayed of yours?
No, it made me a lot more confidence in the conviction on the number 7 Preem that we talked about. It seemed like you could kind of read between the lines with what he said there. Obviously loved all of his answers there. They were all very real. You didn't get the whole, any runaround or anything like that. And that last answer was so candid. That one obviously stood out to me. As you can tell and hear from his answer, that was, he's passionate about the game. He wants to keep the game in California, all of California, not just Southern California. And it's not up to just one person to find a solution. We've all got to, hope that some resolution or some solution gets found. But as far as his runners, seems like he's pretty high on Sandy Bottom and thinks 20-1 is a little bit too big of a price. So hope Jackson crushes that one.
Yeah, no, that was very surprising. So I'll have to take a second look at her. I loved his last answer, just kind of telling it how it is. So it was great having him on. But we'll go ahead and get started or get back going with the last 2 races of the early pick 5. I've got race 4 up on the screen. Race 4 is a allowance optional claiming 20,000, 6.5 furlongs on the dirt. Morning line favorite is the 1 Stop Digging for Pratt and Simon Callahan at 5-2. Second choice is the 4 Nene Diamond for JJ and Mike Pipey. I'll go ahead and get the picks up on the screen. We're actually pretty similar. I'm going 4-3-1 and Ryan's going 3-4-9. Ryan, you're going with the 3 Big Pop for Kimura and Glad at 6-1, who broke the maiden last time, but it was a little while ago.
Yeah, it was back in February. However, a Mr. Big that can win first time out. I know it was state bred, but still early on in that 3-year-old season, typically Mr. Bigs don't develop till a little later on. They kind of go with the namesake. They're typically pretty big horses and they take a while to get going and they can, tend to kind of need to race into shape or race into form. But he won on debut, obviously went to the sidelines a little bit, but Glatt is no stranger and certainly is very adept at getting these horses ready off a long layoff. Is over 180-day layoffs first off the bench. He's 24% with a 267 ROI. Good stats with the win last start, but I don't really pay attention to that in a situation like this where he's coming off such a long layoff. But for Red Baron Barn gets Kimura on board, clearly a runner that cost decent bit above the sire fee. They purchased him for about $75,000. Purchased her, for $75,000 off of the $5,500 sire fee. So I like that coming back in here, and I think Kimura and Glatt they had a really great Del Mar season, and they come in here, and I'm looking for a bit of a price on top. These races are always so difficult.
Yeah, I thought this was it's not a huge field, and maybe not going to get a huge price on the winner, but I thought you could definitely get 4 or 5-1 on this runner. Coming off of the bench, the 57 buyer in the race last time wasn't, something I loved, just because, maybe visually it wasn't all that impressive. And it looks like that race has not really come back to be huge, although you did have 2 next out winners. So maybe it's a little better than I remember. But I think she's just in a sense, the fresh face. The 1 and the 4, who are the first and second choices on the morning line, have run kind of as of recent. So you've kind of seen what they can do. So maybe the fresh face angle, and like you alluded to, Ryan, great stats off of the long layoff I've got up in the top right, 23% plus 180 days on dirt the last 5 years. So certainly got to use them. You've got her on top. I've got her in second. We'll go ahead and go to the 4, who you've got in second. I've got on top for JJ and Pipey. This is a horse that ran a really nice third last time down at Del Mar.
Yeah, something I look for in these races, these, specifically the state breds, but just this condition in general, non-winners have won other than this runner has 2 wins already, has never been added to try. So obviously a hard trying horse. One of the wins came on turf, debut came on dirt back in February of 23. So that was a while ago, but the win on turf came just in October over the Santa Anita turf course, decent second before then. And then ran a half decent third last time out. The race kind of favored closers, I guess, as you can see is annotated there. But I think this race might just set up for her. She should be in a pretty good spot. I'd imagine the 3 is going to try and be a little forward if she resumes kind of that same running style where she went kind of 22 and 45 and was pretty close to the pace there. The 2 looks to have some speed, and the 1 is probably going to take back a little bit, but I think the 4 sits a decent trip. The 4 is clearly a sprinter and clearly likes to run sprinting, is a sprinter. But I think the 4 makes a lot of sense here for Pipey and Juan Hernandez.
Yeah, Matt Miller, if you are watching this, get your pen out, because if I was playing the contest, this would definitely be a horse that I would be circulating some of my bets around. You can see Pipey, he was off of the the 6-month hiatus or suspension or whatever it was, and once he came back into training, he was a little bit slow out of the gates. But as you can see, how I have in the top right, out of his last 8 runners, he's got 2 wins, a second and a third. So his horses are starting to fire again. This is one of the thirds that he had. I thought this race was kind of sneaky good last time. Lost to Ms. Club Cali, in which they all could be. When we take a look at the race here, I don't know if this is going to pop up, but I won't bother with that. But I thought she was in tight. She had a much rougher trip than it says. When she was finally able to tip out, she came with a nice run, but Miss Club Cali was kind of just to her outside and had the momentum at that point in the race. So I think there's a lot of things to like about her. She's still lightly raced, so there's some room for some improvement. She's training lights out of that race. She's going to be sitting in a great spot. As I showed the time form again, the 9 Dendera is going to be the one on the lead. But if she's sitting second or third like that, right there in that position, I would love her even more. So if I was making some kind of push early on in a contest situation, this would be the horse that I would do it with. Brian, you've got the 9 in third, who I talked about. Looks to be maybe the lone speed. I don't know about the 6.5 for her, but if she does get things her own way and gets loose, she could definitely take this field wire to wire.
Yeah, this was an outside speed angle for me for sure. You can see her best races have come when she's kind of opened up on the field, looking at that race 3 back. Obviously, that was a claim, that was a condition claiming race, and we're certainly in a little deeper waters here. But even that race 2 back got caught by Safa, who, if I remember correctly, is a Mark Glad horse that was doing pretty well at the time. Might be wrong. But either way, last race just kind of favored runners from behind. Huh?
I said, I guess we'll never know. I can't pull it up.
No, you can't look. I guess we'll never find out. But either way, the number 9 Barbera should be a decent price. You want a horse that's going to be forward, and the 2 and 3 back buyers certainly compete here. And going to 6.5, I'm with you. I'm not entirely sure, but I think if this horse were to be sent with clear intentions on making the lead, I think she's able to get it and get it all by herself. If somebody else is more aggressive from the inside, that's why I have some other picks up there in front of this filly. But I think with some intention, with Diego Herrera in the saddle, which he is a very good jockey at getting to the lead, and then saving a little bit for down the lane, I think Gary Stute. Thank you. Close. Mark Blatt, Gary Stute, same amount of letters in their names. So anyway, I think Barbera, if sent with some intention, can be out there on the lead and can get home.
Yeah, like I said, the 6.5 is a big worry for me, which I'd probably have her in 4th. But yeah, I don't know if she's going to be able to handle that. And then this is a horse for Clifford Dilemma, who actually, when I was first looking at this and being a Northern California guy, I hadn't seen his name in any PPs in a while. So in a weird way, I don't know if this horse can win the race, but I think it's going to be a factor in terms of the early pace and could shake things up early on in this race. I guess the last horse we will talk about is the morning line favorite, Stop Digging, who actually we are a little bit against. You are actually more against her than me, cutting back from a mile to 7. Is it 7? 6.5? 6.5. Cutting back to 6.5. What was it that you didn't necessarily like about her?
This horse isn't a standout on figures by any means. This horse's 2 tries sprinting on dirt have not been that crazy. I know one was in the Fleet Treat mistake, but really didn't run at all behind pushiness. And then the debut, obviously you can forgive that, but I mean, a relatively low percentage barn. Simon Callahan, only 6%. I kind of like his runners better on turf. Redham Racing, obviously no no slouch there as they send out some excellent California runners every year. But the Flavien Prat money this one's going to take, I just don't know that I want to endorse this one at a short price when he has so many seconds that maybe this is just kind of one of those herd animals. Obviously does have 2 wins, which I mentioned earlier was an angle that I like in these kind of condition optional claiming races. However, both of those came on turf. So this was a fade for me. I think this is a bit of a chalky sequence if you play horizontally, and I like to. So this is a favorite that I do want to fade because I think he's very vulnerable, and that inside post certainly isn't going to help.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. Two back that she was 3-2 and didn't get the job done, and then she was 3-2 again last time in a field of 6. I thought that field at Del Mar was flat out awful. And the fact that she didn't get the job done in that race just led me to believe that, I don't want her at a short price. And you get Pratt too. So, she'll take money, even more of a reason to play against her. But in race 4, I'm going 4-3-1 and Ryan's going 3-4-9. Last race we'll talk about, and the final race of the early pick 5 is race 5 as I get the Equibase up on the screen. Race 5 is an allowance optional claiming 50,000. 1 mile on the turf for 3-year-old and up, for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. I thought this was a wide open race. Morning line favoritism goes to the 5 Shocking Gray for JJ Hernandez and Jeff Mullins. And then the second choice is shared between the 4 Wordplay and the 12 Real Fire. I'll go ahead and get the picks up on the screen. I'm going 4-12-7, and Ryan is going 11-4-6. Ryan's going with the 11 Moments Pleasure for Kimura and Craig Lewis, who from his best bets, as we'll get to later, seems to be a horse that he's very interested in.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this horse dropping out of the grade 3 red carpet last time out. First thing to note is if the number 13 draws in, and I know Jackson will
good point.
Share in this sentiment, that's the number 13 Sariha. This is going to be an absolute play against, just marooned out there at post. It'll be post 12 if Sariha draws in, but this will be a fun play against. You'll get some nice prices everywhere else because the Pratt money on top of the fact that this horse does have really competitive figures is going to lead a lot of people to lean this way. I just think that that's going to be that post position is ultimately going to be her detriment going the mile at Santa Anita. But to pivot back to the 11, I know we're only going a couple post positions in there. However, I think this one's going to have a lot of bottom to her as she cuts back going from the 11 furlong race. I got that one. Cutting back from the 11 furlong race now to a mile. This runner has some really good efforts going this distance. And I know the effort 2 back was a mile and a 16th, but closed pretty well. But if you go back to some of those mile efforts, against State Bred Company, she's run really well. I'm looking mainly at the Solana Beach. This one's a stakes winner. So comes in here. Loves Santa Anita, 4 in the money from 6 tries, and then 6 in the money going this distance. So obviously going to have to work out a bit of a trip, but Craig Lewis is pretty good at spotting his horses where they can be competitive, and I think that this is certainly no excuse. And I'm looking for Moen's Pleasure to maybe be, I think 8-1 actually feels pretty fair. But I'd hope for that or anything more, and I'd like to play this one on top a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see what kind of price you get on her, just because, as I mentioned, the 5 Shocking Gray is the 5-2 morning line favorite, but I don't necessarily see her being that low. So I wonder where else the money will go. If the betting board is anything similar to what we have on the bottom of the screen, she definitely won't be 5-2, which I think we're maybe right in a sense that maybe she's not the horse to maybe lean on or the horse to beat in this race. So yeah, I think Moment's Pleasure is fine. Other really than the Solana Beach, I don't know if her efforts are really all that great. She's kind of a consistent high 70s buyer. The race 2 back going a mile and 16th when she was a 5-2 favorite, I thought was fine. It wasn't huge or anything, but I thought she ran well. So if she gets the right trip and Kimura is able to save ground from the outside, it wouldn't surprise me if she's able to get the job done. We'll go to the 4, who I've got on top and you've got in second. I'll let you talk first about this horse for Simon Callahan. You were mentioning that Callahan's maybe not had the year that he's maybe hoped to have in terms of percentages and getting horses in the winner's circle. But I think this horse certainly has a chance and definitely had some trouble, which I thought was pretty legitimate last time.
Yeah, definitely. And I did mention I like Callahan a lot better on turf than I do on dirt. So this is one of those examples here. 3rd time in the States, off of about a year break coming in, when he shipped in from overseas. So third off the bench. Hopefully you're getting this horse's best effort. Improved first start in the States to second start, only losing by a length to the number 13 Sariha and Strutting. Strutting also runs, I think, a little earlier in this card. However, I like Frankie Dettori. I like the post. I think this horse is going to sit a really decent trip. I'm not sure that this horse is going to have, that final little punch towards the end of this race, but I know that there's no jockey I trust more in a turf route like this than Frankie Dettori. He's ridden this horse once before, rode him in the debut over stateside. So hoping he gives a good account of himself. And I guess you kind of share some similar thinking as you pick this one on top.
I did, and I'm trying to find kind of the spot on the replay where she does have a little trouble. You can see she's the 9 in this race. She's kind of bottled up down on the inside, while the horse in the yellow cap that kind of swung to the outside is Sariho, ends up winning the race. She's finally able to kind of find some room there, get some clear running, but Sariho was kind of long gone at that point. Mm-hmm. Strutting, who's a decent filly that you talked about, was just to her outside in second. So you can see the 9. She's making up some ground. She's running really nicely. I thought that was a nice third, and she only lost by a length. And I thought the trouble was maybe enough to where you could make the argument that she could have won that race, maybe gotten a little bit better of a buyer, maybe 85, 86. So at 6-1, I don't know if I'm going to get that. I would say maybe 4-1, 9-2 if I had to guess, just because Dettori's hopping back aboard. People will see that she had trouble. And another thing, I like the angle of Callahan, where a lot of times he'll bring a horse over from overseas. He lets them get a race under the belt, and then kind of has their best foot forward with their second start in the States. So I think that that race, at least visually, was pretty good. So I'm going to back her at hopefully about 9-2. I've got her on top, obviously, and you'll hear a little bit about her later as we get to our best bets. As a little sneak peek, we'll go to the horse that you have in third, Ryan, the 6, Kahuraru, I believe is the name, which is something I'm not very good at, as people have seen. This is an interesting Wooten Bassett filly coming in from Indiana for trainer Jonathan Thomas.
Yeah, first things first, I love these Indiana shippers coming over here. And as me and Jackson spoke about, in the maiden race a little earlier, Jonathan Thomas has a first-time starter, and he's not very good. Only about 10% with those first-time starters. However, this was one of those runners that kind of bucked the trend. One is the favorite at Indiana Grand, first time out. Florent Giroux is in the saddle, and today you get Johnny Velasquez, who time and again he comes to the West Coast, and even with Pratt there, closing weekend at Del Mar, he won a couple stakes and he had some really, really good rides on horses, and just really is the reason that they won those races. So I love that Johnny V is going to come aboard here for JT. Obviously Wooten Bassett's going to love the turf. No issues, no hangups there. And yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this one running back, because any Jonathan Thomas debut runner that is able to win is one that I'm going to want back. Yeah,
it's just because we had Michael McCarthy on, we probably should have gotten back to the 2, the first time starter in what was that, race 3 maybe? Was that race 3?
That's Jonathan Thomas. We had Michael McCarthy on.
I know, but the runner that we were talking about, the first time starter, was that was a race 3, right?
Yeah, Preem. We did talk about that one.
Oh, I'm talking about Jonathan Thomas's first time starter.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that one. Oh yeah. Right. I see. That's
yeah, right. Yeah. And you were mentioning how he's not great first time out. I wonder if how the 2 performs will be maybe a little indicative of how this 6 runs, and if the 2 does run well first out in that race, then maybe the 6 will maybe take a little money. And Jonathan Thomas comes over here a little more often within the last couple of years than he has ever. So I think she's certainly one to consider. She was $425,000 purchase. It's Augustine Stables, who is kind of Jonathan Thomas's main client. And they always bring horses over. They had was it Will then in the junior, and he had a big price.
Your dad was rather excited about that victory.
Yeah, he was very excited. What was that? The second leg of the pick 6, maybe?
Yeah.
First leg of the pick 5. Yeah. So they always come with intent. So probably have to use her in a horizontal sequence. I'll quickly touch on the horses that I have in second and third. Real Fire. This is for Hector Barrios and Peter Miller. Even though it was a 79 buyer last time, I thought she ran really well in that $100,000 allowance race. Yerwan there and Sneaker are some really quality horses, I think. I'm not too worried about the in the tag for 50,000, just because she's already got 4 wins. I was looking at the conditions, and she wouldn't be able to get into this race without being in for the tag. So, and even though the post is not great, it looks like her style is to kind of take back. And there were some other runners that I thought Hector Barrios could have taken the mount on, but he decides to go here on a horse that he's never ridden before. Peter Miller's not necessarily his main guy, so they don't team up a ton. But just the intent there was enough for me to put her in second. And I think if she's able to save ground, she could definitely have a chance to win this race. And then the 7 Lady Claypool, who's actually 1 for 15, but she's more of an underneath play, maybe a reverse try key factor in this race. She just finished behind Moment's Pleasure and Shocking Gray in that optional 40 on November 9th at Del Mar. But I thought she had a lot of trouble in that race, might have even run the best race out of that group. Good Saez, which Saez and Baltus obviously don't team up very much. But I think she could be a sneaky one to price. I think you'll get every bit at 12-1 just because there are so many players in here. So I think she's definitely one to consider. And then Ryan, I guess I'll let you talk about the 5 Shocking Gray, who we actually don't have anywhere, but was third in that race that I just mentioned for JJ and Mullins, and just seems to love it here at Santa Anita. But for some reason, we don't love her.
Yeah, this is her 6th try now, pretty much at this level. Hasn't really gotten through, or hasn't gotten through. Still not in for the tag because they're not eligible, so still protected in this spot. But I mean, typically at this level, you see horses that have tried stakes company before, some succeeding, maybe some not running well, but they've at least thought enough of those horses to put them into that spot. And you see this one did have a stakes try a while back, looking into May of last year. So obviously a fairly long time ago, and just hasn't quite been able to string those races together. You see a lot of layoff lines since, coming back from May of last year, and really just her whole career since she was placed 3rd through that DQ a while back. So yeah, I'm not in love with this horse. Hector hops off. Obviously you get JJ, so you can't read too much into the kind of jockey musical chairs. But this is just another one of those short prices I'm going to try and beat in here. Also worth mentioning, this is a Calbred versus Open. And just, I got to respect the connections for trying Open company with a runner that clearly has some ability, but maybe, a 3rd or 4th place finish is kind of where I have this one running.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's all about price. It seems like her preferred style just leaves her with a lot to do.
We have the time to touch on one more price in that 5th race. I do just want to give a quick shout to the number 1. And I think my buddy Jackson also likes that because he just has a Rosario in the chat. But I mean, this runner from the rail is, what do you do with this horse coming out of the Atomic Miss? Chase, there it is. Chased a fast pace, drops back in here. Certainly a jockey upgrade. Coming out of the Autumn Miss, it's 70-1 just about. Didn't have Lasix that day, gets Lasix. Lost to none other than one of my favorite horses out on the West Coast in Watchtower. So gets in here, back against this condition, obviously not running for the tag. I know 0 for 2 at Santa Anita. One of those was in the Autumn Miss. The other was just kind of second start in the States. So didn't, regress too hard on the buyer figure standpoint. So, this horse is certainly bred to run all day and to win and love turf. And I don't know, this horse might be a little sneaky in a race where I'm playing against the favorite. I feel pretty good about using a Joel Rosario horse with good early and good late pace figures, routing on turf out of Kingman with a Great Britain mare on the bottom as well.
Yeah, and like Jackson says in the chat, there's really not a ton of speed. So even though she's not really a speed type herself, even if the 6 and the 8 maybe decide to go, Rosario is going to find himself in a great spot.
I don't think we're getting 15-1 either.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. The one thing that had me considering her was the first 2 starts in the States were fine. Last time, it's funny you mentioned the jockey upgrade because I thought it was quite a very strange ride from Valdivia. It took her way back, and I don't know if that's what she really wants to do. Maybe that was just with the fast nature of the race. But she likes to be within 2 lengths of the lead, and he had her 13 back at one point. So I think if Rosario's got her more involved, which I think she will be, just with the slow nature of the race, at least according to time form, I think you've got to definitely consider her. we'll go ahead and move on to best bets in the final race of the Pick 5. I'm going 4-12-7, and Ryan's going 11-4-6. I'll go ahead and get our best bets up on the screen. Ryan's going with first best bet, race 1, a double 9-7. Remind me who those horses
That
are.
is Count of Amazonia into San Saba.
Okay. First
So yeah,
double, and then race 5 win bet on the 11 Moments Pleasure.
Yeah, I'll start with race 5 because that's the one we just covered. That's number 11 Moments Pleasure. Should get a decent setup. I know there's not a ton of speed. I'm hoping this runner just saves a little bit of ground. And while there's not a lot of speed, it also feels like one of those races where off the pace runners might do well. We see that kind of more often than not on occasion out on the West Coast, where even if there's no speed, those closers still seem to do well because none of the horses, on the front end want to finish. And then so you have some come from behind runners doing well. So that's my hope for number 11 Moments Pleasure, but it's definitely a deep and contentious race. So I'm hoping for a decent price there. And then my race 1 double going Count of Amazonia, who loves going down the hill with those good mid 90 buyer speed figures in his last 2 attempts. I know 7-year-old coming second off the bench, but then goes right into a horse that they're calling the son of Justify. Bob Baffert, in an interview that Jackson sent us earlier today, basically said verbatim that San Saba is the next coming of Secretariat, which is ridiculously high praise. I'm not looking for that. I'm not going to say San Saba is anything close to Secretariat, but I mean, you can be just as good as his back left hoof, and you could probably still win versus that field. So that's maybe what I'm hoping for San Saba, and I'm hoping that's the higher price of the 2 Bafferts. Maybe you get 8-1 on this. I'm not entirely sure, but that'd be my hope. And those are my 2 best bets in there.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the way you got to play. Like I was mentioning with the early Pick 5, I feel like you have to choose either Manicat Road or San Saba if you're trying to play a bet. So, the 9-7 double makes a lot of sense, and then Moments Pleasure can certainly win that final race of the early Pick 5. So good luck with those. For my best bets, I'm going with a double, race 3 of the 1 and the 5 into the 4. The 1 and the 5 are Slick and Lee's Baby Girl, and then the 4, I believe, is Nene Diamond. So. Ryan, when I see you on Saturday, if Nene Diamond is able to get into the winner's circle, I might be doing the Nene myself. And then race 5, a win bet on the number 4 Word Play, who I think had legit trouble last time. And, I don't really love a ton of other horses in that race. So hopefully I can get 4-1, 9-2 on her. So hopefully I can get that home for the people. But I'll go ahead and get the final banner up on the screen. Ryan, final thoughts for opening day Thursday down at the Great Race Place.
Yeah, the now my number 1 thing I want for Christmas is to see you hit the Nene in the winner's circle. So that would be just
Christmas.
What's that?
I said it's gonna be after Christmas.
After I know, but now better day late to see that than not at all. So now I got to root for Nene Diamond too. And then I mean, yeah, just a great little show. I love this entire opening day card. The early Pick 5 is really competitive, and then you get into some really top end races. As races 6 through 11 are all stakes. You got that nice $2 traditional Pick 6, and I think you have a couple areas where you can kind of narrow down the La Brea and the Malibu not being 2 of them, because I think those are really deep and competitive races going 7 furlongs. That's kind of that tricky specialist distance, but I'm looking forward to opening day. I'll be there. You'll be there. Jackson will be there. I know he said 95%, but he'll be there. We got to get him out there. Same with everybody else that's going to be out there. Good luck if you're playing in that tournament as well.
Yeah, no, that late Pick 5 looks to be a doozy. I haven't quite gotten to it yet, but I'm glad that the Picks and Ponies guys are covering it after us here in a few minutes. So make sure you go check that out. Make sure you go check us out next week, because I know we're going to be covering some good Santa Anita stuff. And I believe Howard and the older boys have a big announcement that they're going to be giving out tonight. So make sure you go check that out. That's going to wrap it up for us. For my wonderful co-host, Mr. Ryan Anderson, this has been your host, Noah Maher, covering the early Pick 5 for opening day Thursday, and a little bit of an interview with Mr. Michael McCarthy. Again, make sure you check us out next week. And as we like to do here at PHP out.